Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me here at Unapologetically Progressive. Now I have an update for the wildfires in California and maybe clear up a little bit of misinformation for you today that you may be seeing on other websites. Now, for the update. Now, as I told you last week, thousands of acres have been burned, thousands of structures and homes have been destroyed, and the death toll has changed since last week when I made that video. The death toll as of this morning stood at 24, including a man who was an amputee who was taking care of their son who had cerebral palsy, and a woman who was taking care of her elderly mother who could not be moved. And so 24 people are dead, and I don't understand why there's anyone out there celebrating it. I've seen so many people, especially people on the right, celebrating these fires, thinking it's wonderful that all these people are homeless, that they've lost everything, that they're running for their lives. Thinking, oh, it's just rich people, they'll be fine. But are rich people not human too? I mean, they've lost everything. But the thing is, it's not just rich people, right? There are a lot of working class and poor people who live in that area. And those people have lost everything too. Yet you've got people out there celebrating on Twitter, Facebook, Threads. I've even saw a guy on TikTok celebrating the fact that his house was covered in snow while people in California were on fire. And that's absolutely despicable. Further, we also know that somebody has been arrested now in connection to starting one of the fires. To think that people would purposely start these kind of fires, knowing exactly how bad it's going to get. And if anybody died from that fire, I hope they're charged with murder. But luckily, the death toll, like I said, is 24, but it could be a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. Now, the Santa Ana winds have died down over the last few days, which has allowed the firefighters to be able to get a little bit better, control of the situation. Unfortunately, today the Santa Ana winds are expected to return to being slightly stronger between now through Wednesday. So we don't know how much more damage these fires are going to be able to do. The hope that I saw over the weekend from one of the for a fire chief was that maybe it would the Santa Ana winds changing direction based on the winds that they were dealing with might push the fire again back, some of the fires back on top of themselves. Therefore, they would have nothing to burn. Therefore, they would die out, or at least have a better chance for the firefighters to be able to put them out. Unfortunately, the embers when things catch on fire, these embers just go everywhere. I was watching a video of a palm tree that caught fire, and just the sheer number of embers that came off of that tree that flew right down. It showed how it just flew right down the street and hit another set, right down the mountain anyway, not street, but right down the mountain, and hit another set of trees and started those on fire. It was the fires I was watching the other night on video on live stream. It's horrific. It's a very tragic time for the people in California. And I'm glad to know, though, that some people are out there trying to help. Now, the people over at Fox News aren't trying to help at all. Jesse Waters is out there saying that he doesn't think it can be taken. They can deal with the fire because the head of the department is a woman who happens to be part of the LGBTQ community. Like, what are you doing, Jesse Waters? What are you doing? This person has some of the best scores out of training that anybody else has had. From I read earlier, she was in the top 50 of people that took the test to become a firefighter and to become captain. I don't understand where you're coming from. I don't understand why you would do this. It's disgusting. But what else do you expect from Jesse Waters and Fox News? Right? They never let they never let the time go by that they don't find a way to insult people. It's just stupid. Now, the bit of misinformation I want to clear up has to do with Joe Biden and the declaration of disaster that he signed off on and amended last week. And we're going to discuss that here. But first off, let's talk about, exactly what happened. Last week, when the disaster declaration was signed by Joe Biden, he also added additional funds up to 100% of eligible funding for eligible damage and cleanup and things like that. And then immediately after, Fox News and other people on the right, especially people on Facebook and Twitter, were pushing this narrative that, why didn't he do that for North Carolina after Helene hit? Well, folks, he did. Here on October 2nd, 2024, it says here, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. amends North Carolina disaster declaration. This is something that could easily be debunked. All you have to freaking do is take 2 seconds of your time and go look on the White House website. There it contains everything that Joe Biden had, every proclamation, every declaration, every executive order that Joe Biden has made. Doesn't take much. As you see here, today President Joseph R. Biden Jr. made additional disaster assistance available to the state of North Carolina by authorizing an increase in the level of federal funding for emergency work undertaken in the state of North Carolina as a result of Tropical Storm Helene beginning September 2024 and continuing. Under the President's order today, the federal funds for debris removal and emergency protective measures, including direct federal assistance, has been increased to 100% of total eligible costs for 180 days. That's almost 6 months. That's like 5 months, 28 days from the start of the incident period. Now, I have a lot of people that I see out there saying that, that doesn't mean anything because we don't see anything happening on the ground. Well, I don't know exactly what it takes to get everything done. Do you? There's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of problems. As I mentioned in the previous video, the bridges were washed out. Roads were washed away. It's taking time. A lot of what they're having to do is fly stuff in still. And I understand that it's slow and painful and it's taking too much time for people. And I understand that. But let's not spread misinformation and trying to, hurt another community who's in pain. The thing is, FEMA is going to be on the ground in California, just like they're still there in North Carolina. People are still going to be trying to help. The federal government is still going to be trying to help. Now, the fact is, this is where we are. Okay? North Carolina, especially Western North Carolina, is still in a big mess. And yes, we need to get more work done in North Carolina. But let's not act like Joe Biden and the federal government didn't act. They've made sure everything was at the disposal of the governor of North Carolina. So said the then Republican governor of North Carolina. All the states that were affected by Helene have said that Joe Biden and the Biden administration went above and beyond anything they asked for, anything they've requested, they've gotten, and even more so. Even Ron DeSantis had to praise Joe Biden and his response to Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton, even though Florida was hit with a double whammy, just days apart. And so I just wanted to clear up some of that misinformation. So what California got is exactly what North Carolina got, exactly what Florida got, Georgia got, and I believe Tennessee received extra additional funds too, above the 75% that is usually customary. So the fact is, Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done what they can. And one reason I think that Joe Biden may have acted as quickly as he did with the LA fires is knowing that he is leaving office in 1 week. A week from today, Joe Biden leaves office. And the next guy probably isn't going to be so caring about people struggling through disasters, as he proved in his first term. It's just one of those. It's one of those things. You know, he's trying to protect people. And with that proclamation, sure, Donald Trump could try to stop it, right? He could try, but it's going to make him look really bad. But the fact is, it was equal. We don't know how the exact response is going to be in LA yet, because the fires are still raging. We don't have time. They don't have time there right now to be worried about how are we going to clean it up. Right now the focus is on how do we put it out. And we can deal with all the other problems, all the other criticisms once the fires are out. And then we can compare apples to oranges and see the response. But I'm going to tell you one thing. The responses are going to be slightly different. Because it's not going to be hard for construction crews and cleanup crews to get into LA. It's flat until you get into the mountains. But the mountains aren't as, it's not as, they're not as steep and they're not as crazy as the mountains that you reach in, going into Asheville, North Carolina and such. And the fires have burnt a lot of areas, a lot of houses in flat areas. The Palisade area looks to be very flat. Therefore, there's not going to be a lot of hills to get over, a lot of bridges to get over. There's always going to be a way for them to get there. Places like Asheville, North Carolina clearly are getting better. And they're going to, of course, they're probably going to focus on the cities, before they deal with the outer small villages and towns around that area. But I do know Asheville is doing better in general because like I said in my video last week, a wrestling promotion just recently had a show there. And so clearly, there is some progress that has been made. I do agree that there needs to be more progress made. I believe that they need to be made completely whole, just like the people in LA need to be made completely whole. Now, I have some more updates for you later in the week over this situation in LA, talking about how State Farm cut off the insurance to over 1,600 people, and maybe just in the Palisade areas alone last July, and some other information as well. I also still plan to do the deeper dive into TYT and the problems that I have with them. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of problems over the last few weeks and have not been able to get anything accomplished on that front. Anyways, thanks for joining me here at Unapologetically Progressive. If you like the content here, hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell so you can set it to make sure you don't miss anything here from Unapologetically Progressive. Thank you for joining me.